about the technique of suctioning here, the catheter itself in just a minute. But let's knock this out first. Okay, so we talk about oxygen. Okay, obviously oxygen therapy, oxygen cylinders. Okay, oxygen is a flammable gas. Obviously, if you ever have any questions, now it's not expected of you to understand or to know what categorization of hazardous materials it falls under, but it is. It's in fact a flammable gas. Okay, but just know this: there is in the oxygen section, you'll see when we get to it, there's going to be a little chart on the bottom page of like page 2 or 3 within the chapter. It talks about the different cylinders. Okay, this is a D cylinder. It just happens to be a D cylinder, and we reference this as a portable oxygen cylinder. Portable oxygen cylinder. Usually, something this size gets carried in a bag with us, a jump kit or something, or you know the head of the stretcher where the stretcher head goes up and down, and maybe it's mounted somewhere like that. It's portable. We can take it to wherever the patient is. Okay. We get into larger cylinders, like G cylinders and so on, like that are mounted inside the ambulance, the wall of the ambulance. Where now, once we get the patient back into the ambulance, we can transfer them, because obviously this is only going to last for so long. So now we transfer them into the back of the ambulance, and now we hook them up to the unit that is supplying the ambulance, larger capacity. Okay, we don't have to worry about them running out. And then you have permanent stations like in hospitals and so forth. Okay? So just be mindful. We'll get to that chart when we get there in regards to the oxygen therapy delivering devices on what cylinder is for what. There's actually an equation there that probably be a good idea that you know in regards to if I'm flowing this rate at this for this amount of time and so on and so forth. You know, so yes, important information we'll get to. But right now, all I'm concerned about is let's learn how we're going to, for the skill portion of it, what we need to know is you're going to be asked to demonstrate how to swap from a old cylinder to a new cylinder. Okay? Then I have an extra cylinder in there, so when you have the skill actually being done, you're going to take one off, the regulator off, and you're going to put it onto the other one and stuff. Okay? So first thing that we're going to do is this. We need to, just like anything else, we need to know our equipment before we use it. Okay, so we have the bottle itself. Okay, please know that again, it is a hazardous materials, and these need to be stored correctly. Can't just say, okay, I'm done with this. Let me just go throw it in the back of the ambulance. Okay, this is under high pressure, high pressurization. I've seen one time in my career where the stem was broken and this thing became a projectile. Pretty gnarly, pretty weird, very dangerous. So make sure that we store these correctly, okay? So we need to inspect the bottle every time that they don't come with regulators on them, but we need to inspect the bottle to make sure that it is no dents, no dings, everything is intact. So this is what the bottle is going to look like. Give me 1 second. Did you happen to see in there, the wrench that goes, did you see another bottle that had like a little cylinder wrench here, okay, that we're going to use? We need a device like this because it's fitted here, and this is what's going to give us the ability to open and close the bottle. Okay, very difficult to kind of hand tighten and stuff. So we're going to make sure we have this wrench available with us. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a new bottle. Now I want to kind of simulate so you guys can kind of get a little bit of a better idea of what you're going to be looking at when you bring a new bottle over to yourself. Okay, these new bottles are going to be secured. Okay, they're going to be presented. They're going to have, you see these open ports and stuff, right? These are going to be, this is just humor me and just simulate this being like a hard plastic safety tab. Okay, there's like a hard plastic safety tab that's wrapped around these. Okay, and the reason for that, it's just letting us know that it's still a new bottle, hasn't been tampered with or anything along that line. So this is what this is going to look like. Okay? So when we get our new bottle, we're going to come over here and we're going to inspect it, make sure there's no dinks. We're going to sign it out. So first thing that we're going to do is we need to tear this first little tab off. Okay? We're going to tear this off and to gain access to it. Okay? So we just go ahead and set this bottle aside here for just a second, and now we got to take the regulator off of the old bottle to be able to swap it out. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so this is the bottle that we need to swap out. Okay, this is our regulator here. Okay, this is our regulator gauge. Tells us how much pressurization or how much oxygen we still have left in here. We talk about oxygen, we're talking about liters per minute, flow rate wise, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, okay, I'm going to go through the regulator once I take the regulator off. Okay, but how are we going to take this off of here and swap out? Okay, there are some steps that we need to do. Okay, we know that when this bottle is open, okay, just like anything else, it's going to be left to loose, right to tight. Left to loose, right to tight. So we know when we open the bottle left to loose, we're getting the oxygen coming from the high pressurized coming from the tank. Now it's going to feed into the regulator. Now it's just sitting in the regulator, ready to be dispersed. Okay. Now when we come here to the selection gauge here to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 liters per minute, then we start to flow. Correct? Mm-hmm. So when we come up to a cylinder, first thing that we need to make sure that we do when in the midst of swapping it out is closing the bottle. We're closing the source. So the first thing that we're going to do is this. We're going to close the system itself, the main system. Okay? Now remember, we've already gone from here to here in this system here, so there's still some residual pressure here in this regulator. Okay? So we shut it off from here to here, but this residual needs to be drained. Okay? So next thing that we're going to do, once we close the main system, we're going to go ahead and just purge the system. Okay, now we just drained it from whatever residual was left in the regulator. And you're going to see the gauges, the needles are going to go all the way to 0 and so on and so forth, right? Because now it's not getting anything else from here to here. Okay, so now we can take the regulator off. Okay, the regulator, we have the yoke right here. The yoke is just what we use to tighten and close, open and close. So left to loose, right to tight again. So now we just lefty-loosey with the yoke, and we take the regulator off. Okay? So this bottle is done. We can go ahead and take this bottle, secure it, okay? Normally when you swap out oxygen cylinders, you hand them to somebody, depending on how your company does it, but you hand it to them, they store it securely, and then they'll give you a new bottle. If you're in your ambulance, you have these carriers for these cylinders where you just put it in the chute and you secure it with the chain and so on and so forth. Okay, they cannot just be thrown around. Okay, so now we have that bottle that we just exchanged for. Took off the plastic security wrapping around the top, and then now we inspected it and we're good to go. Okay, before we get into the actual swapping portion, I just want everybody to take a look at the regulator. Okay, when we practice and stuff, you get a chance. But you have your gauge here where it talks about oxygen and the pressurization and so on and so forth. Just like anything else, it's just a gauge. Where the needle shows is telling you how much is going to be in, how much you still have to utilize. Okay, you have indicators with the red and the green. Different companies are going to be different. When I say different, I'm talking about when it's mandated for you to swap out. Okay, anything maybe under 300 psi or 300 liters, we're going to go ahead and swap out. Okay, because we don't want to start with that, get on a call where we're going to need it, and then halfway through the call we run out of it. We just want to start fresh. Okay, so we go ahead and swap that stuff out. Okay, so again, and we have the yoke here that opens and closes, securing the device. Okay, again, you'll see, if you notice the yoke, how it's pointed at the end. You see right here how it's kind of comes to a point at the end. Does everybody see that? You guys see that? And the reason that is because it's going to slide right in to this portion right here where we actually secure it in place, knowing that we're in the right place. Okay. Now we have these two portions right here. These are the prongs. Again, some people, I've heard them even reference them as to help you remember the fangs or whatever, because it looks like whatever. prongs. Okay? More importantly, there's a centerpiece right here. If you notice, I'm going to lift it up. Okay? There is an O-ring, a gasket. This little gasket needs to be present. What are gaskets for? Proper sealing, correct? So if you look at it, the difference, I don't know if you can tell the center of it without the gasket, it's just going to look like that. The center of it, look what it looks like without the gasket. You see that? Okay, and then this little O-ring gasket so we need to visually inspect to make sure that that O-ring gasket is in place. Now this is what it looks like with the gasket in place. Okay, so you need to visually inspect to make sure that your O-ring is in place. Okay, so once the O-ring is in place, these two ports right here, we'll put it on and then you can see it in place and stuff, and we'll describe all the other little added components and stuff. Okay, so but this is our